Alrighty guys, welcome to your athlete's guide to optimizing your recovery. This guide is all about making sure that we're doing, 3 simple things to make sure that we are optimizing your recovery to maximize your performance. So let's get into it. The FSC Recovery System is, what we are trying to do is make sure that we give you enough stimulus that doesn't fatigue you too much so we can't get an adaptation. So what we want to do is give you the right amount of stimulus for the recovery that you can do to get the most adaptation possible. The more adaptation we get, the better that you will become. Now, easier said than done, A lot of the time, we don't know exactly what you're doing at home. So we don't really know what your recovery is like. But if you follow this 3-step guide that we are about to go through, we won't have any problems because we'll be managing these fatigue levels enough to make sure that we are taking step-by-step action and leapfrogging your competition. Sounds good, right? Now, how does it work? I've talked about it a little bit before, So what happens when you train? When you start training, you actually get worse. You'll obviously notice this as you're doing it, but it doesn't seem that way when you think about it, So here's an example. You come into training, you start running around, you start getting tireder. You then can't sprint as fast, you can't move as fast, you can't change direction as well. We are putting you into a state of fatigue by implementing a stimulus, Now, what we then have to do to make sure that your body can get an adaptation is to make sure that we recover greater than the stimulus that we put on you, If we do that, body will adapt, so the stimulus that we put on you last week won't affect you as much this week. That is why when we give you a certain rep scheme for 1 week and then we increase it for the next week, you can do it, but last week you wouldn't, because your body has recovered enough, have an adaptation to allow your body to do that this week. Pretty cool stuff. All right, here's a simple analogy that worked really well for me, So it's called the bucket analogy, And what it really entails is, you have a bucket that you can fill up every day. Put too much water in the bucket, it overflows. Not enough water in the bucket, you don't manage to empty your bucket to where you want it to go by the end of the day. Now, this bucket can accrue over time. So if you don't manage to empty the bucket each night as well as you can, obviously the next day and the next day after, that water line is going to start creeping up and up. So here's how it works. You start the day, your bucket's nice and empty. Your tap's shut off, you're waking up. As we wake up, we start doing things, we start being active, we might go for a training session, there's some stress in our day, you go to work, you go to school. That will start filling up your bucket. Now, when you get to the end of the day, your bucket's probably going to be pretty full, and we need to make sure that we empty that bucket before the next day. If we only manage to empty the bucket halfway, then the next day when we put ourselves under a similar amount of stress, we're going to get halfway up and we're going to be wasting all that water. It's going to be falling out. So it really highlights the importance of making sure that at the end of every day you have done enough things to recover enough so you can fill that bucket back up. Otherwise, it spills over the side like this bucket on the right-hand side and you end up with a lot of water everywhere. All right, we do this in 3 simple steps, Refuel, rehydrate, sleep hygiene, and a 100-point recovery system. By implementing these 3 steps, you will take your recovery from pre-average to amazing. If we manage to get your recovery as optimal as possible, we can do amazing things in the gym, And we can do amazing things in your training. You're going to recover from them. You're going to see great improvement. Now, refuel, rehydrate. Now, first up, there is a video from Sab at the Rookie Rise NRLW Academy session that we did. Go check that out for your refuel, rehydrate. She absolutely nailed it in that presentation. It's very in-depth. It talks a lot about, the macro needs that you need to be under, gives you some examples of things that you should be doing, etc. But, in simple terms, after training or competition, we want to consume at least 1 serve of protein, 2 serves of carbohydrate, and maybe 3 large glasses of water. This is all relative to your body size. For example, a 90 kg man like myself will need more fuel to recover than, say, a 60 kg girl. We are built differently. We require more or less fuel. So please check out Sab's video on that because it is so good and it's so much better than what I could tell you in this bit. But at the end of the day, we just need to make sure that we are rehydrating ourselves and refueling ourselves. Next bit, sleep hygiene. This could be the easiest thing that you ever do to improve your performance. Guess what? It's the time that you get to sleep, and the time leading up to your sleep. So 2 to 3 hours before bed, we try not to have a large meal. We want to make sure that your digestion process is taking place. Now, that is easier said than done. I know for a fact that, for swimmers, you might be finishing training at 7:30 at night, and then you've got to be back at the pool at 5 in the morning or 5:30 in the morning next day. If you get 8 hours of sleep, you're going to have to go home and pretty much eat and sleep pretty much straight away. So this has to be much more condensed, and you have to get a lot better at it. Take a warm shower 1 to 2 hours before you go to bed. It helps kickstart the sleep routine. It's been shown that a shower before you go to bed, it starts relaxation, starts allowing you to get into that mindset of, okay, I'm about to go to sleep. An hour before bedtime, let's try and switch off any devices that you may be using. So we're not getting that blue light that's going to stimulate us to keep us awake. Otherwise, if you've got blue light glasses, try and wear those 3 hours before bed. But 1 hour before bedtime, switch it all off. Don't scroll on TikTok for the next 12 hours while you're trying to go to bed, okay? Promote a dark environment. Easiest thing you can do is go to IKEA and buy some blackout curtains. They're not expensive, they're not hard to set up, okay? But they will completely change the environment that you sleep in. You need that place to be as dark as possible. No blinky lights, no nothing, just pitch black. Your body will naturally go, it's in a dark space, it is time for me to sleep. All right, room temperature. Make sure your room is around 19 to 21 degrees. Realistically, we want the room to be nice and cool. Cool room allows for you to be less restless at night, less tossing and turning. Also, you're not going to sweat as much. If you're not going to sweat as much, you're not going to be as dehydrated when you wake up. You're going to be more optimally prepared for the day ahead. Empty your mind out before you go to bed. I do this a little bit. Sometimes when I get home, my brain is still ticking. So writing down everything into a journal, just getting all the thoughts out of my head, anything that I need to do the next day. At bedtime, maybe try read a book, practice some meditation, stuff that's going to really relax you. Meditation is something that works for me if I'm struggling to sleep. I just do, the breathing exercise that can really help bring me into that relaxation stage, allow me to quiet down the voice in my head that's running at a mile an hour and let me go to sleep. All right, the 100-point recovery checklist. This is a pretty tried and true method with sporting teams. The goal of the checklist is to accumulate 100 points, okay, to allow your body to fully recover. These points can be accumulated 24 to 48 hours within that window post-competition, or if you do this over the course of a week, you're going to be getting a lot of good benefit out of that as well. Sleep, obviously, if you sleep more than 9 hours, you're going to get 20 points. Nutrition, you're going to consume 150% of your water weight lost in game, in fluids, and then your macros, consume your adequate macros. Hit those big three, you're already at 60 points, only 40 to go. Not that hard, okay? Sleep hygiene, if you're sleeping 9 hours, you probably had to follow the sleep hygiene guide. That's going to really optimize that. Go for a bit of a walk, cold immersion, get a massage. Just be aware that you aren't going to double the point scores that you get. If we've got down here 20-minute flush massage and you go for a 40-minute one, you don't automatically end up with 30 points. Same way as if you go for a 10-minute massage, you're not going to get 7.5 points. Ensuring that you kind of get all these things ticked off and get 100 points of recovery is going to be a game changer for you guys to be able to come back in on Monday and then optimize your next training week and continue to kick goals as we go. Alrighty guys, I hope you've enjoyed that and got something out of it. If you've got any questions or you need a bit more bespoke advice, please just reach out to me or your coach and we can go through and give you some suggestions and some tips, really nail down this recovery process so we can optimize your training outputs. Alrighty guys, catch ya.